So hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Black Women Who Coach. And I am Anne Marie, aka Ball Girl Will Travel, and I'm happy today to be speaking to Adalia Aborisade. Is that correct, Adalia?
Más o menos.
Más o menos, more or less.
Yeah.
Who is my guest today and featured coach. Adalia is going to explain a little bit of what she does as a coach, but I've been following her on social media for a while. She's Picky Girl Travels the World, and she provides tips to expats, especially in the financial realm, which I have found very helpful in terms of not just living abroad, but also how do you financially plan and budget for it and engage in behavior that will allow you to do it on an ongoing basis for as long as you need to. So I'm really happy to have Adalia here today. Adalia, thank you for agreeing to be on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And my first question, of course, is tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, including the correct pronunciation of your name, which I should have asked before we got started. So I apologize for that.
This has been my name for most of my life. There was a little period in there when it was slightly different, but it's always been a struggle. So I'm really nonplussed by it. But in the US, if I'm saying my name, I'm Adalia Aborisade. I am originally from the United States, specifically Texas, where I used to work in K-12 education for about 20 years. About 5.5 years ago, I left the US and really have been intentionally living life on my terms ever since then. I retired from education about 1.5 years ago to pursue coaching full time. I sort of struggle with what to call exactly what it is I do. I toyed with the idea of financial life coach because I kind of straddle the fence there, but I'm also part financial educator, part relocation specialist. But like you said, I am really about helping Black women master their money so that they can live the life they want, and particularly if that life involves travel or living outside the United States for extended periods of time.
So tell us what inspired you to coach? What inspired you to go into coaching full time?
I didn't know the author of this quote at the time, but I believe her name is Aisha Siddiqui, that said, be who you needed when you were younger. The younger part of my life was less than great. And I was pretty much responsible for myself from the age of 8 on. So like I needed some people along the way. And just hearing that clicked with me, like the things that I have learned having to be responsible for myself for so long. And often I learned it the hard way. I was like, what if I could spare somebody else? Like, what if I could have had somebody who is the me I am now? And so that's what really kind of awakened this sense of responsibility to me, that I have this knowledge hard earned, and that I really felt responsible to help other Black women who didn't have it so that they wouldn't have to learn things the hard way, the way I had.
That's wonderful. I have to say, I have learned a lot watching your videos, Stephanie Perry, of course, videos, especially around moving here, because it has been helpful in terms of setting expectations and knowing what to do in certain circumstances, because you've given great information, not just about money, but just really practical things about living in Mexico specifically, and travel. I'm in your travel group and I'm always like going in there and looking things up. So I really appreciate what you said about trying to be the person that you needed. In the work that I do myself, I also think about that a lot. Like when I was in my 20s and the first time that I had to negotiate my way out of a bad workplace and all the mistakes that I made because I didn't know, certain things. I was lucky to have friends who helped me, but all the things that I would have done differently had I known what I know now. And so I really try to like convey some of that information to people now so that they don't have to start from the beginning the way that I did. Why do you think coaching is important?
I think coaching is important because it's what makes first of all, it's something we all need. Like no one is born figuring it all out. So we can all use some coaching at some point in our life on some aspect of it. But it's what makes what we think is inaccessible to us actually achievable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is like spot on, actually. Yeah, it makes what you think you can't do possible. In multiple, that's what all the coaches that have worked for me have done from the very beginning, made me realize that something that I thought I could not do, or something I thought was extremely hard, which would also made it seem inaccessible, was not as hard as I thought it was. So that is like a perfect description. Why do you think, well, first of all, instead of assuming your answer, do you think having a Black woman coach is important? And if so, why do you think it matters?
I absolutely think it matters. And I've become more cognizant of that the more time I spend outside the US. Being Black in particular, if your Black experience is an American Black experience, it is, I want to say it's unique, but it's more than that. I don't want to say complicates, but it adds layers to your life that no one really can understand unless they have had that same experience. And I think it's in particular, living in Mexico, I have Black female friends, but they're not all Black American. Mm-hmm. And so we often have conversations about how my Black experience is different than theirs. Yeah. And what I often hear from them is like, wow, I didn't realize it was that complicated. Mm-hmm. So having someone who has been there and been through it and who can empathize and who understands your point of reference, yep. I think that's vitally important.
Yeah, I think, the way I describe it is I believed it to be a very unique and specific experience that informs almost every part of your life, if that is what you are. And
I agree.
It is damn near impossible, in my opinion, for a person to effectively, and I'm a person with an HR background, to effectively coach a person of color, specifically a Black person and a Black woman, without understanding that specificity. I don't see how you can be effective, because there are things that happen to us that are unique to the fact that we're Black women. Not just that we're Black, but that we're women. And Black women. The way in which the world treats us, specifically Black American women, is a very specific thing, right? And it's very hard when trying to explain something to someone and you can't even sometimes name certain things. And one of the things my coach helped me with was doing that very thing, that you're experiencing something, but you don't know how to name it. And so for a person who's never experienced it, how are they going to help you do that? Right? Much less contextualize it and know how to deal with it. How are they going to help you do that? They've never experienced it. They don't know what it's like, And so, I've had a couple, snarky comments about, why do we need to have a BlackWomen Coach Directory? And I'm like, because Black women need to find other Black women to coach them. And I'm like, I can't apologize for it. It is what it is. And it's not easy to find, especially in specific specialties and areas. It's not easy to find unless someone like refers you and knows somebody, because I know what I went to find my first coach that was a Black woman, when I specifically decided the next one has to be a Black woman because I'm tired of doing this with other people, right? And it wasn't easy, right? And so I think that it's hard for people to understand unless they're in it. And I mean, my family is from Caribbean, right? And they can't even understand sometimes when you talk to them. Unless they come and they live here.
Yes.
Right?
That's the thing.
Unless they come and they live in the United States, they cannot understand when you're trying to describe some of the things that happen, right? And when you describe it, they're like, well, maybe, it's this. No, it's not that. But you don't understand because it's never happened to you and probably never will if you stay ensconced on that island where you're surrounded by everybody looks like you, acts like you, thinks like you, right? You're never going to experience some of these things. And so it's very, unique even to other people who are Black, as you said, because unless you've lived in the United States, you don't really understand what it's like to be us in that context. What qualities would you say your clients should look for in their ideal coach, especially if they're looking for someone like you to help them, navigate not just the expat experience, but how to, as you said, manage their money so that they can have the best possible experience for the longest possible time?
I think if they're looking at qualities, it's going to be difficult, probably damn near impossible, just without at least having one session with somebody, being able to kind of get a full sense of it. But what was I going to say? I forgot that quick. You want to know that they know their stuff, that they have experience. I think experience is very, very important, not just like I have this certificate, I have this plaque on the wall. It's like, have they experienced? Did they live it? Do they know their stuff? Do they listen? Because I have kind of had to clean up behind some folks, some other coaches or educators, where it's like, I've got this program and they're pushing it at the client, but they're not listening to what are the client's needs, where are they, and catering what they're delivering specifically to that person's needs. So if they're not listening to you, you find yourself, like I told them this, but they said, mm-hmm. that to me, that's problematic. Do they push you? Do they make you a little uncomfortable? Now, I'm not talking about the first meeting they show up and they're asking you to just blast through all your boundaries and run outside your comfort zone, but are they challenging you and making you kind of reevaluate some of your long-held beliefs and pushing you, challenging you to do some things that make you a little uncomfortable, but that do get you toward the goal that the reason you've contracted their services in the first place? And, do they deliver? Can they point you to previous clients that can say, yes, I was able to do X, Y, and Z after I worked with this person?
I think that's what you just said about listening is critically important, as well as the pushing and referrals. Those things are extremely important, and not everybody even thinks about, especially whether someone's going to push you. I think if you're too comfortable, your coach is not right for you. If you have a coach that's not making you think about doing things that you don't feel comfortable doing, not that you feel bad doing, but feel uncomfortable doing, you probably don't have the right coach. So I think that's a really good point that you just made, that's actually not something that should scare you away. It's something, because I remember my first coach, who is one of my favorite people in the world. And I remember walking away from that and thinking, I don't know if I like this woman, because she wasn't just going along with all of my foolishness. From the first day, she was asking me questions that were hard questions. And even though she was like, you don't have to answer this right now, but I want you to think about it. And at one point, I remember saying to her, I feel like you're shrinking me. Are you a coach or are you a therapist? And she was like, I'm just asking you questions, right? And I remember like calling the person who referred me and being like, I don't know about this person. And her saying, look here, she did the same thing to me. You need to just stick with it. And it was the best thing. I literally would not have the life that I have now if it wasn't for her. But I remember that first meeting and thinking, I don't know if I, want to do this, right? And I think what you said about the listening is critical. It's really, really important.
I like what you said about it kind of felt like they were shrinking you a little bit. And if it doesn't feel that way, to me, that you should be questioning, should I continue to work with this person? Because they should be sort of seeing inside of you and then into how you tick a little bit and making you wonder like, oh, is this a psychiatrist? Or, you know, what are we doing here? I think that's also a key piece.
But I think that listening thing, because listening is a skill I continue to work on, even in my work and in my regular life, right? And it's a critically important skill that most people don't master. Right. And I think what you said about a lot of times someone is telling you something and you're already thinking 3 steps ahead and you need to stop and hear what it is that they're actually saying they need. And what you said about, you know, sometimes people, and everyone has their packages and whatever, but I think you have to be prepared to be flexible and to meet people where they are. I don't consider myself a coach, and someone called me that today on social media and I had to correct them immediately. But even in the consulting work that I do, I find listening is probably one of the most important things. You have to listen to what people are saying that they need. And it's one of the first things I ask people now is, what do you want? Like, what is your objectives for this? What exactly do you want? And sometimes they don't know, and that's okay. But I ask them that question, right? And I think a lot of times with coaches, people come in, they have a plan, and they don't always listen to their clients. And so finding someone that is actually listening to you is a very important thing to like look for in a coach. What would you, what kind of person would you say should hire you as a coach?
I think the woman that would hire me knows that where they are in life is not where they want to be, and has a good idea that part of that is rooted in finances. In particular, their relationship with their finances.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us a little bit about your actual work and your products, what you do. Like right now, this is the time, Adalia, to plug. I want you to plug that program or product that you have. I know one of your clients who has spoken very highly of you, who I've spoken to, I adore, Kayla, right? So I know you've really successfully helped people. So I want you to talk a little bit of like what your offerings are right now that people might want to take advantage of, especially Black women who are thinking about moving abroad.
Right now, I offer one-on-one coaching, generally in 3 areas: moving abroad, travel, kind of put that as one, personal finance, and for certified U.S. teachers who are looking to take their careers abroad, because that is how I was able to move abroad, like within months of making my decision to do so. Mm-hmm. From time to time, like every few months, I offer a financial confidence boot camp, which is a 1-month, 4-week course that covers financial, financial basics.
Literacy?
Yeah, financial literacy, but it's called Financial Confidence Boot Camp because what I have noticed is that with a lot of women, including Black women, there's a lot of lack of confidence, a lack of surety when it comes to what am I supposed to be doing? Mm-hmm. And so I work to empower my course participants so that they can make the decisions themselves. What I have no intention on ever becoming is a financial advisor. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to tell you what to do with your money, but mm-hmm. I want to educate and empower you enough that you can do it yourself. Right. Because I firmly believe that everybody can do this themselves. In the new year, January, February, I will be launching some digital products, particularly geared at women who are planning to move abroad or who are already abroad. You know, what are the things you need to be doing? What are the forms you need to have? Like all of those things, some digital products for those. So those will be launching in the early part of 2022.
And I will put your contact information and so on in the description so people can get to your website to look for that, because I think that would be extremely helpful. I would have loved to have had like a workbook of some kind when I was doing this. And so things like that, I think having something like that to like figure out the numbers, because there are just so many things that come up with moving and getting from one place to the other, and that you don't think about, and just calculating like how much you'll get if you sell your clothes and your this and your that, and figuring out a budget and all those things that would be really great to have. And I have absolutely no interest in producing any of these things. I'm always encouraging other people to do it, so that I can point someone to a website when they ask me. What is one important thing you've learned about yourself through coaching others?
This is going to sound trite, and I don't mean it to, but it confirmed that this is what I was supposed to do. I have always been sort of a coach, a teacher. Really, as early as I can remember, I was the person who knew lots of things that people could go and ask. And so I've kind of done that for other people in other places. And then I was like, okay, well, I can just do that on my own. And I'm like, yeah, this is it. This is what I was supposed to be doing.
But what better feeling is there than that, though? Is there? I mean, what better feeling is there than finally knowing that this is the thing you should have been doing all along?
There really isn't. There really isn't. And I do sometimes think about that. Had I not been willing to just kind of be like, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to step out and do this, that I may not have discovered, because I always wanted to do work that mattered. Yeah. That was very, very important to me. I'm a horrible, horrible capitalist. But I always wanted to do work that matters. And this last year and a half, more than once, I've sat back and was like, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm doing work that matters.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there is a better feeling than finally figuring out the thing that you should have been doing all along, because that has happened to me in the last several months. And it's not, I mean, even when you're doing it, I was just talking to someone today about, being self-employed and some of the challenges of that, but it's still great at the end of the day to know that you're doing something that you really love doing and that you're helping people while you're doing it. I just got a really great testimonial from a client, and it really made me stop and think, yeah, this is the thing. Because sometimes you wonder, should I really be doing this? And it was really good confirmation at the right time that, yeah, this is important thing for some. No one else is doing it. It's important for somebody to do it, and I'm doing it. So I think you're right. There's not quite anything better than knowing. And I can honestly say that you're doing a lot to encourage Black women, not only to travel and to travel solo, which I'm a big fan of, but also to not be afraid to take the leap to move abroad, but to do it responsibly and to do it thoughtfully so that you can do it for as long as possible. Adalia, thank you so much for agreeing to do this chat with me. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure talking to you and finally getting to meet you. After following you, stalking you a little bit sometimes, but also following you on social media all this time. So thank you for your time, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Thank you again for having me. I've enjoyed this. This was great.